What's up, Whisper Nation? We are live here with Week 5 reaction. We're going to be talking Dak Prescott sad news. We're going to be going over all of this week's games, what you need to look out for to get you ready for this next week, right here on the Fantasy Whispers.
Right here.
It's Monday, October 12th, and you're listening to episode 125, the official Week 5 reaction show for the Fantasy Whispers. I'm Philly Chelsea, and you can find me on Twitter at Chelsea Levy. And as always, I'm joined by Johnny Gametime Hicks. You can find him on Twitter at Johnny_Gametime. What's up, Johnny? How was your Week 5?
My Week 5 was like any other Week 5, up and down, but I enjoyed the football games. It was a lot of fun to watch those, and I played you in a lot, so we can't all win on this show. All right, it's just impossible.
Right,
Some of
thanks
us
for letting
can.
me have that opportunity this week. And on the other mic, of course, we've got Big Travie. You can follow him on Twitter at BigTravieTFW. I encourage you to do so. He's a great follow. How you doing, Big Trav? How was your Week 5?
I appreciate that, Chelsea. My week, for fantasy purposes, and this is a fantasy show, so I'll keep it a little quick on that. For fantasy purposes, I up and down, like Johnny said. I think that's a lot of what this season will be. But my Lakers got it done last night. Got a big shout out for the Lakers. Lake Show, 17 championships. Braun gets his 4th. Just so many great things going on there. So that was exciting to be out here in LA and see our guys in the bubble get it done.
Yeah, excited to know that a bubble could work. NFL, take some hints.
Right.
Yeah, take a look.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam Silver for president at this point. But if you want to follow the show, in addition to all of us as our great hosts, you can follow the show on Twitter at TF Whispers. We hope you follow us on YouTube and Instagram. Give us a subscribe there at the Fantasy Whispers. And of course, get to the website. We are dropping articles regularly. TheFantasyWhispers.com will hook you up when it comes to articles, latest episodes, and swag. There's still plenty of time to get yourself some good stuff to wear this season. And of course, we are always looking for support. You can support the show by signing up as a patron of the Fantasy Whispers. There's lots of bonus content getting dropped there, so check it out at patreon.com. Search the Fantasy Whispers today. Week 5 reaction.
Week 5
We're in it
reaction
right
is
now.
here.
It's happening. We got to react live to it. So here's our reaction. Wow.
Yeah. A lot
I
of
think it's
sad,
important.
a lot of sadness.
Yeah. I think it's important to get through some of these news and notes. But if you are new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. Hit that like button. Help us out over on YouTube. That helps us continue to put out content every single day. But we'll start with the news and notes, guys. And I think there's no bigger story than Dak Prescott being diagnosed with a compound fracture and dislocation of his right ankle. He is done for the season. This is a guy who was the leader of the Dallas Cowboys on and off the field. This is a guy who was in a contract year playing on a franchise tag. And this is a guy that was putting up monster numbers prior to the injury. Johnny, I'll start with you. Just want to say some words on Dak and then kind of what you think for the outlook of the Dallas Cowboys afterwards.
I first, condolences go out to Dak and his family. That was truly saddening to watch. My second bit here, I can't really say on YouTube, because we'll lose demonetization here for this video if I say it, but it starts with an F and it ends with Uck and Jerry Jones, and because that dude should have paid Dak, and now this guy unfortunately has possibly lost an opportunity to take care of his future children's children on generational wealth because Jerry Jones didn't want to fork up a little bit of extra money to pay the man. He showed us even through the first 4 weeks he was worth the money, and now unfortunately this is really sad. So that's just from a personal standpoint. This is a fan show like we talked about. So fantasy wise, this is, I think this could be better for Zeke. Honestly, I think they'll run the ball a lot more, and you kind of started to see that. And then I think CeeDee Lamb is okay because he's a slot guy. It'll be interesting to see if he can find a connection with Amari Cooper. But my question to you guys is, what do you guys think on Michael Gallup. I know we'll get in depth of that game a little bit more, but I do have a little bit of concern with Andy Dalton being able to sustain all three of these wide receivers and possibly, the tight end Schultz as well. So we'll get into that game. I'm interested to see like a full dive into that and what you guys think. But yeah, the initial diagnosis is not the best news for the wide receivers, and I would give an uptick to Zeke.
So Chelsea on the other side, our next news nugget here is Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook left last night's game, week 5 game, with a groin injury, limped off the field, was taken to the locker room, and he did not. He did come back briefly, but it looks like, he was done for the night after that. And insert Alexander Madison, right?
Waiting actually on our MRI results this morning to get a full diagnosis of what that hamstring injury actually looks like for Dalvin. So it'll be interesting to see how long he's sidelined. And Alexander Madison has proved to be a workable fill-in, right? I think about Mike Davis and CMC. It's definitely not ideal, and this could be a really exciting replacement role for this offense if you are lucky enough to have grabbed Alexander Madison, maybe didn't if you were a Dalvin Cook roster. I think that's an interesting position to be in right now, but it's not the same situation as Dak, right? He didn't lose the whole season. He will be back at some point, so definitely not as hard-hitting news, but something to definitely watch out. Dalvin Cook's been putting up monster numbers this season. If that all switches over to Alexander Madison, it's a big change-up.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We had like a lower quantity of injuries this week, but we had maybe the most devastating injury of all in Dak's that we've had all year. So it's kind of sad. The last one I want to touch on real quick, Johnny, is Sammy Watkins caught both of his targets for 24 yards and 1 touchdown before leaving the game with a hamstring injury. So, you have been a guy beating the drum hard on Mikko Hartman's upside about stashing him all year, because this could mean big things for him if Sammy Watkins were to miss extended time. Are you feeling the same way? Is it time to get invested in Mikal Hardman? Would you like to start him, going forward, or do you want to see a little bit more without Sammy in there?
We'll check out to see, this injury. If Sammy Watkins does miss a lot of time, I'm sure we'll talk about him in tomorrow's waiver wire episode. So make sure you're subscribed for that. We put that out every Tuesday. I've always been a fan of Mikal Hardman coming, like Travis said, into this year. I think that, this would be an uptick if Sammy were in a bigger chunk of this offense, that he could really do a lot of damage. And then you're talking about Mikal and Tyreek that you're having to defend, as well as Travis Kelce. Like, that offense could get... I don't understand. We keep saying, like, oh, this is a scary offense. I don't know how it could get any scarier. And yet, like, I definitely think that with Mikal in that offense over a guy like Sammy Watkins, this offense is a lot scarier.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. We'll see how defenses are going to try and defend them. That kind of rounds up the news and notes. As Johnny mentioned there, you can get our waiver wire video we put out, but that's only part of it. The full article goes on the website, and the full audio version goes on our Patreon, as well as our matchup show. So if you want to get over to patreon.com, subscribe to the Fantasy Whisperers, and get all sorts of bonus content over there. All right, so let's dive into the action. We're going to start with the first game on the slate. And this one had a bit of news come out of Atlanta afterwards, because the Atlanta Falcons dropped to 0-5 when they hosted and lost to the Carolina Panthers 23-16. And Dan Quinn finally gets fired here. You never want to hope for somebody to lose their job, but this guy was kind of long overdue to get the boot here. The defense kind of saved him last year. But on that Carolina Panthers side of the ball, Johnny, Teddy Bridgewater was a streamer. He was an advised streamer. He was on the waiver article that we just mentioned last week. He went 27 of 37 for 313 and 2 touchdowns. So you like to see that you fired him up there. But I think what we like to see even more is DJ Moore finally got involved here and finally busted out. 93 yards and a touchdown on 4 of 5. Johnny, how are you feeling? Robbie Anderson also got involved too, 8 of 13 for 112 yards. How are you feeling about this wide receiving core out there in Carolina?
I like it. They've continued to produce. There was DJ Moore just didn't see the end zone, and that's why people were freaking out. But I mean, he was putting up pretty consistent numbers. Lowest output was 69 yards. So I think that this was his kind of breakout game. We were telling you, buy DJ Moore. And if you were able to do that, you were really happy with this game. They do play the Chicago Bears next week, which have been pretty stout against the wide receiver. So, I mean, there is another, if you can kind of flip DJ Moore and possibly get, maybe you aren't as confident in this Carolina offense. Like I'm confident in it. I think Teddy can lead the way here. But if you aren't, then you could use this to, trade DJ Moore if you are concerned about it. But I think this is here to stay. I think both Anderson and DJ Moore are going to be, top 24 wide receivers for Teddy.
Chelsea, you talked about it a little bit in the news and notes, but Mike Davis continues to be the vein of this offense here, and he had another special day. Mike Davis. That's not a thing.
It is a thing. If
No,
you are
it's
from,
not. Mike
if
Jones
you are
is a
from,
thing.
no,
It's not even. It's one syllable.
yeah.
Jones is one syllable. Davis is two. It doesn't work. Mike Davis. Anyway,
Yeah,
Chelsea,
it
tell
works.
people about Mike Davis.
Yeah, I mean, to your yeah, Mike Davis. I mean, I think it's going to be a buzzkill or a crazy thing to see when Christian McCaffrey comes back in. Of course, he's going to get the lead role again when he's back. But right now, Mike Davis is doing it for you. I mean, 16 attempts and 6 additional targets on that. I mean, you mentioned Robbie Anderson and forgot to even mention Curtis Samuel. So I just have to say that this whole offense is firing at a whole nother level. I mean, Curtis Samuel nearly put up 10 points for fantasy purposes all on his own. And they had Robbie Anderson running the ball at some points too. So I'm just really impressed to see the way that with Teddy Bridgewater as quarterback, maybe something that we didn't really expect to go well in an offense, and losing a stud like CMC, that this is still a team that's getting it done and for fantasy purposes in really exciting, dynamic ways. So not suggesting anyone go out and try to stash a Curtis Samuel right now because he's getting a few carries out of the backfield, but just I think for the long haul, this Carolina Panthers team, especially knowing CMC's coming back and will be taking or sharing some more time at the very least with Mike Davis, this is something to keep an eye on.
You got to be really excited about Christian McCaffrey coming back, given that Mike Davis has seen 8 receptions or more in 3 of 4 games that he's been the lead back there.
Do you think they'll limit CMC, seeing that Mike Davis has been, tearing it up? Do you think they see this and say, all right, I think we'll limit CMC's, I'm not saying that CMC goes to a 50-50 timeshare, but do you think this all of a sudden, because before CMC was getting 100% of the snap count, you see it, maybe being like a 60-40, a 70-30?
I think Mike Davis is getting like around 75 right now snaps, so 75% of the snaps. I don't think it's going to limit Christian McCaffrey's upside at all.
Okay.
I think he's going to come back in and get about 75% of the snaps. Maybe they do bring it down to the monster workload he was getting, but the upside's still there, and we've seen it in Mike Davis. Mike Davis continues to put up numbers, so that's on the other side of the ball. Johnny, Matt Ryan, we kind of were saying on the live, like Matt Ryan was going to get one more shot for us to do it, and he did not do it. 21 of 37, 226 yards. Obviously, the Julio Jones injury is affecting him, and I think injuries throughout the wide receiving core have become an issue. But Johnny, Todd Gurley did get it done for fantasy GMs that started him here in a nice matchup. 14 carries, 121 yards and a touchdown. 4 of 5 for 29 yards. You like to see the receiving work getting back in there. Johnny, are you looking to kind of move away from Gurley here after a big performance, try and sell high here?
I am. And the reason I say that is because I'm concerned about this team now, right? Like that's the major concern is this team they haven't won a game. And so what is the coaching staff? Are they going to tank in order to get, like, is Matt Ryan done playing quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons? Like, are they going to turn to Matt Schaub because they want to tank in order to get that number 1 pick and get a new quarterback in there? I have some concerns now. I mean, Calvin Ridley, he's going to be the wide receiver 1 that you're going to want there. But I do have some concerns about where this team could be headed. And so with that, I would try selling. Maybe if I I would try getting out of Julio. I would try getting out of Todd Gurley. I'm interested in what you guys think because, I just see this as a dumpster fire waiting to happen. And, that makes me concerned for my fantasy roster if I'm rostering any of these guys.
Yeah, Russell Gage didn't get involved. 16 yards receiving. Big Oz, 1 of 4 for 13 yards. Hayden Hurst, who you thought maybe could get an uptick, only had 6 targets, 2 receptions, 8 yards. Really just a bad day for this offense. I am interested to see. I don't think they've named the interim coach, but I imagine it would be Dirk Cutter, who's calling the offense and has been a head coach before. I'm really excited to see if they can play a little bit better on offense, but I'm not high on Matt Ryan here, and I'm definitely not high on Todd Gurley. I would hold on Julio because of the way that Dirk Cutter is able to get these wide receivers involved in the past.
Oh, I just want to jump in because
moving.
they did actually they did name a head coach. So for what it's worth, Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator, has actually been named the head coach. And given how many games that they've thrown away at the very last minute, failed defense, not worried about that.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense that your best playmakers are on the offensive side of the ball. So give the defensive guy the head coaching job.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm not, an NFL owner, so what do I know? The Baltimore Ravens are our next matchup. They hosted the Cincinnati Bengals, and they just boat raced them out of the stadium. They went to 4-1 after beating the Bengals 27-3. The Bengals fall to 1-3-1. So we'll start on that Cincinnati side. And Chelsea, your favorite Gen Z QB, Joe Burrow, didn't really show up today. You got a hard dose of reality here. 19 of 30 for 183 yards. Yeah, 1 interception, a fumble, and just really did not get this Bengals offense going at all. So we have Joe Mixon here, 24 carries, 59
you're
yards.
completely
right. Yeah. Joe Mixon, 24 carries, so you like that usage, 59 yards. You don't like the production. But Johnny, 6 of 8, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 35 yards. So I actually think there's some positive takeaways here, both from Joe Mixon and then also T. Higgins, who saw 8 targets, 4 receptions, 62 yards. How are you feeling about what happened here? And do you think that more games like this will come for Cincinnati, or are you thinking you're pretty excited about what you're seeing there?
Well, what I'm more excited about is Giovanni Bernard only getting 2 targets and only catching 1 for 4 yards. That's what I'm excited about. I think that this is great news for Joe Mixon. Listen, it wasn't the biggest day, but it's against the Baltimore Ravens in a blowout, and I think that I would be pretty ecstatic to seeing what we saw from Joe Mixon and seeing that he got the bulk of those targets. He does play the Colts next. That's another serious run D right there, and then the Cleveland Browns, and they have a pretty solid run D. So we've been talking about this the last few weeks as far as Joe Mixon's schedule coming up is pretty difficult, but I think he's going to be at least a solid RB2 for you moving forward. So that's good, and he has the ceiling to be, what we saw last week. So I think if you have him, you're just going to keep holding on to him.
I think it's time that you can get rid of AJ Green. He had a hamstring injury here. He did not return to the game. And so when we're looking at the wide receiving core, Chelsea, do you have concern outside of Tyler Boyd or for Tyler Boyd here? 4 of 6 for 42 yards.
I mean, yeah, that's a definitely concerning thing, but this was a down week. If AJ Green's out, I think Tyler Boyd's definitely your guy. I mean, T. Higgins has done it these last couple of weeks, and he's still a rookie. So I do like Tyler Boyd's experience on the field, especially if AJ Green is going to be exiting or just mute in a lot of ways moving forward. So it was a down week, but I would say he's going to be a guy that you should keep your hands on for sure.
And it looks like this offense continuing to throw a lot will sustain probably both Higgins and Boyd going forward to see consistent work. You just want a little bit better of a matchup than those vaunted corners in Baltimore. On the other side of the ball, Johnny, the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson continues to kind of give you down weeks. And I think we are seeing a situation where Lamar Jackson, this team is just not clicking on offense, but they're continuing to win. And I think that's what's more important to them right now is winning football games as opposed to putting up gaudy numbers.
Yeah, I think I'm assuming they're thinking they're going to figure it out. I know that they did lose an offensive lineman, and that has been really big for them in their run blocking. But yeah, it's you're seeing a regression. We thought that this could happen, right? We saw Lamar Jackson, have one of the most explosive fantasy seasons as far as a quarterback goes. And we talked about this being a realm of possibilities that Lamar Jackson regresses quite a bit. That last year's game script and everything was going so right for him that, it worked out, and that things changed this way by drafting J.K. Dobbins, which I think they've got to turn that over eventually. Like, he is so much more explosive than any other running back they've got there, and it really shows. You see Dobbins 1 carry for 34 yards. Like, I don't understand how you have like Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram had a decent day, 11 carries for 57 yards. But it's like, get this guy the ball. You need to get him the ball in his hands and get it in the play.
Yeah,
He's having.
I'll be interested to rewatch this game because I want to see, is the inefficiency at running back actually causing some of the offensive woes that we're seeing in this team? Because it might be a situation where you do see them change things up. I mean, their bye is coming. Well, I guess it's not for a while. I'm not even seeing it on here.
Well, who knows with the NFL? They're changing
Right.
buys up
Yeah,
left
yeah,
and
that's
right.
true.
So let's not bank on anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm not seeing they're not showing me about. Well, either way, I think what will happen here, hopefully for the Ravens, is they'll get a time to look at all of what's going on within the running game and see if that's limiting kind of what's going on with Lamar Jackson. But for now, I don't think you can trust any of these guys in this backfield, and we continue to say that until we see maybe an injury to somebody else or what's going on there. Marquis Brown, though, finally had that day. We've been kind of calling for that. 10 targets, 6 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. And then, of course, you had Mark Andrews, 6 of 9, nice, for 56 yards and a touchdown. Look, that's how this target tree works in Baltimore. It's Marquis Brown, it's Mark Andrews. You're starting the marks, so to speak, and you're rolling with that. Maybe not Mark Ingram. Moving on to the next game. The Houston Texans had fired their coach and Bill O'Brien and hosted the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they came out and won for new head coach Romeo Crennel. They go to 1-4. They drop the Jaguars to 1-4 as well. And that means the other Gen Z QB, Gardner Minshew, Chelsea, decent streaming option this week, but really not what you're looking for in what could have been a potential shootout. Nope.
Nope.
She's like moving on.
Moving on.
That makes sense. We got James Robinson, Johnny, 13 carries, 48 yards. He had 5 of 7 receptions, 22 yards, but he also did have a no contact fumble in this game. It was kind of a weird one. Are you having concerns for James Robinson? I know you were saying this could be coming around the corner. You should try and get out of James Robinson. Do you think this was maybe just a bad game? What's your take on Robinson here?
Well, he gets the Detroit Lions up next, so he's going to smash in that. That is a great one. But then he gets a bye, and it's going to be hard to sell him after. Like, I would probably sell. It depends on if you need him this week, right? But then somebody would probably say to keep him. But I'm telling you, look at this after the bye. He gets the LA Chargers, Houston again, which you only put up 77.5. Then he gets Green Bay Packers, Pittsburgh in week 11, Cleveland in week 12, Minnesota in week 13. So I think the schedule is difficult. I think that you can still sell him as an RB1, and so that's why I'm saying to trade him. But if you need him and he's contributing, like, he's going to be good next week, and I think he'll be, a low-end RB2 the rest of the way. I just think that you have a window to sell him or pair him in order to get something really, really nice. But yeah, I think better days ahead for sure than 7.5 fantasy points. 48 rushing yards. I think he'll be better.
So on the other side, are there better days ahead for DJ Shark? I mean, he went 3 of 4 for 16 yards, but then also left the fourth quarter with an ankle injury. And we saw Laviska Shenault kind of get involved here in his absence. 7 of 8, 8 targets, 7 receptions, 79 yards. So I'm kind of worried about this Jaguars offense if Shark can't go next week because we've seen what happens. The floor just kind of bottoms out. Any advice here to DJ Shark GMs, Johnny?
I'm
Thoughts
not
and prayers.
yeah, thoughts and prayers, because I haven't heard the significance on this. Hopefully it's not a high ankle sprain. I didn't see the play, so hopefully it's not severe. I don't like to see that he suffered an ankle injury once coming back from another injury. So this is just unfortunate. We'll hopefully get more information, and then we can figure out what to do from there. But as of right now, you just got to hold him, because he definitely is the cog that makes that offense go, for sure.
On the other side of the ball, we have the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson had himself a game, 25 of 35 for 359 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions. He also had a couple more carries on the ground, 2 carries for 25 yards. You like what you saw out of him. And then David Johnson getting some nice work in a good matchup. That had to have GMs feeling really good. 17 carries, 96 yards. He had 4 targets, 2 receptions. So he didn't get into the end zone, Chelsea, but you got to be confident about what you saw out of David Johnson. He did have a bit of an injury scare, but was able to come back in this one.
Sure. And I was just trying to look up to see how many teams in history have won for the first time the week after their coach is fired. Maybe gives us a nod for confidence for the Falcons at one point in the season. So I'm hoping it's not just that the team's feeling really good, that they've been freed of a tyrannical leader who's drove their season to the ground thus far. No, but David Johnson on 17 attempts really did some work for your team if you had him this week. Yeah, the injury definitely is a little bit scary, but he came back, so that's a good sign, right? Let's not talk about an injury then.
And he's gonna have some decent matchups. I mean, Tennessee, we'll see if he's gonna be able to play them. But then Green Bay before the bye, then after the bye, Jacksonville. So those are some nice matchups you like to see going down the stretch. So I think you're confident in DJ. I don't know that you'd be looking to move him just yet, because you should get some better games to be able to sell high if you wanted to. Brandon Cooks had himself a day, Johnny. 12 targets, 8 receptions. If you had the stones to start Brandon Cooks, you were rewarded 161 yards, 1 touchdown. He kind of showed up and showed out. We were wondering if, Bill O'Brien being gone and a new offensive mind in there would actually help open these guys up. Will Fuller got in the end zone as well, 4 of 8 for 58 yards and a touchdown. Randall Cobb catching all 6 of his targets for 47 yards. We've got a passing attack kind of working here, and you're hoping this starts to click, right, Johnny?
Yeah, and we definitely projected this, to possibly happen, because their schedule really opens up, right? They got Jacksonville, that always helps. Then they get Tennessee this next week. You have a Green Bay and a possible shootout. You got to like that. And then they have Jacksonville in week 9 again. So you can definitely see this as a continuing trend. The weird thing, Travis, about the Brandon Cooks and why we were continuing to tell people to stick with him was he was running the routes. He wasn't just seeing the targets, but you certainly see that it is just a matter of time before I almost called him D-Hop, before Deshaun Watson got on the same page with Brandon Cooks. So if you did miss out on starting him this week, it's okay. It happens. It's hard to always predict things, and like you said, you don't want to throw out a guy and get a goose egg. So,
it's like Andre 3000 said. You can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather. And I think that's
right.
exactly what happened.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
happened there. So I think we're confident in these Texans going forward, or at least you can regain some confidence in what's going on there. Moving on to the next game, in a shocker, the Kansas City Chiefs dropped their first game of the year at home to the Raiders.
That was pretty good.
Raiders,
that was good.
3-2 now. They have 2 signature wins on the season against New Orleans now at home, and then they go on the road and beat the Chiefs here. And the Raiders just seem to be this Jekyll and Hyde team of 1 week, they could upset you, and the next week they could just get, trounced by you. But what we saw here was a team that kind of does what they continue to do. Derek Carr was very efficient here, 22 of 31 for 347 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. You saw him get the ball to their playmaker, Henry Ruggs, 2 of 3 for 118 yards, 2 receptions, Johnny, 118 yards and a touchdown. Like, that is some good production.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean,
Man,
we said it. I will say, if you go back to our summer channel, or summer video where we talked about Ruggs and Rieger, we said this was exactly why you wanted to take a dart throw on them, because they are it takes one play, and obviously Ruggs had 2, and you're sitting at like a 20 point fantasy day almost because of just 2 plays. That's wild.
Yeah, and I think, obviously there's just not a lot of volume in the passing attack here, but some guys are making plays, like Nelson Aguilar, 2 of 2 for 67 yards and a touchdown. You saw Renfro get 1 reception, but for 42 yards. I mean, this is just kind of wild. I don't know if we'll be able to predict too much, but I think like Ruggs will probably get his shots to like make plays, and I think that's exciting, and you want maybe a piece of that because of the playmaking ability. But then it's Darren Waller, and that's probably it. It's 5 of 7, 48 yards and a touchdown. He's going to continue to be the main vein through the passing attack. And then Josh Jacobs getting that workhorse role, 23 carries, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns. Are you confident in Josh Jacobs going forward? Because I know we said, the schedule is going to tighten up, but do you think that he's going to continue to be an RB1?
I'm a little worried about Josh Jacobs, actually. If just looking at it, he has less than 4 yards, or around 4 yards per carry on average at this point. And this game, while 2 touchdowns is exciting, his longest run was only for 7 yards that whole game. So you really are dependent on the volume to keep him moving in this case. And it's sort of interesting the way that they're playing, right? You have Ruggs getting these long balls to get the ball actually down the field eventually. And then Josh Jacobs can push it through at the line. So I guess so long as they get to the line, you're excited about Josh Jacobs, but you just noted a tough schedule ahead. So I don't know. It may be a good time to get ahead of it and to start trying to leverage some of this early season play and get out of this situation if he does have a tougher schedule ahead.
I love that, Chelsea. And you look at what Josh Jacobs is. He's an RB2 with RB1 upside. And, people might say, well, what the hell are you talking about, Johnny? I've drafted him in the first round. Look at this. Week 1, 30. He had 2 20-point games this week, and both of those he had over 20 carries in. But then the other games, the other 3, he's had less than 12 fantasy points. And what was the correlating factor? He didn't get into the end zone. So if he's not getting in the end zone, he's an RB2. If he gets in the end zone, he's an RB1.
Yeah, and so on the other side of the ball, Johnny, we've got Patrick Mahomes doing Patrick Mahomes stuff.
In the first half.
22 of 43, 340, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. He got in on a rush as well. He had 6 carries for 21 yards and that touchdown. So he kind of, 3 touchdowns, that's about his baseline. That's what he's going to get you, however he gets it to you. So, I know you've got some grief here with him getting it done in the first half, but it did seem like this offense that kind of was a little bit slower in that second half, and it may have been the cause of their loss here. What do you think fixes that? Because I'm looking here, and Clyde Edwards only getting 10 carries for 40 yards. He did have 8 targets, 3 receptions for 40 yards. Do you think – we're going to have to start calling this here. Like, is it his inefficiencies as a bigger back in the red zone? Or is it his usage when they get to the red zone? What do you think the issue is here? Do you think better days are ahead for CEH on this offense, or what's your take here?
I am concerned with. CEH has the upside. We talked about it. This is what his upside is. He's on the best offense, and I am concerned that he's not going to get the goal line carries. And they love to pass it down low because they have so many playmakers. They want to put the ball in the best hand possible, and that's Patrick Mahomes to make the best decision. And so, watching this game, there was also what was wild was Patrick Mahomes, like early in this game was a little weird. I could have honestly seen CEH getting more carries. A lot of those carries came early in the game, Travis. On like the first few drives, they were running the ball more, but then they got behind, and Vegas, well, they caught up, and then they really started to, and then went ahead, and so it kind of made them abandon the run game. But there was like an early bomb. I was so mad because I have a double dip of Tyreek Hill and Pat Mahomes in a league, and Pat Mahomes had this sick. Literally, it was a 60-yard bomb to Tyreek Hill for a tutty, and that would have been like a 20-point play, and it was called back on a terrible holding call. Like it was considered actually block in the back, which it was terrible. It was horrible. But yeah, so it could have been a much bigger day for those two if that and possibly change the outcome. I don't know. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but yeah, I am concerned with CEH. I do think better days are ahead though, but this is a passing attack. That's what we know, and we know that it.
And I think to that point, Johnny, we've got Mikal Hardman, who we talked a little bit about at the top of the show, and so it's just like stash him. Continue to pick him up on waivers and see what happens with Sammy Watkins out, because you've got these Chiefs and now they're going to go and play Buffalo, who Buffalo has been up and down on defensively, but they've had some shootouts already. And I think that game, we see this happen. Like when two big teams in the AFC meet up, they end up, going after each other.
And that's a Monday night game now. That's a Monday night game.
Oh,
so.
They flexed it to Monday. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, your studs on this offense, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, continue to get it done for you week in and week out. They are monsters. I mean, Kelce, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 108 yards, and a touchdown. And then Tyreek Hill, what do they have his?
Yeah, shoot. That
70,
was my Pat Mahomes kryptonite right there. Chelsea had.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the next game, we've got the Jets who hosted the Cardinals. The Cardinals moved to a 3-2 record, beating the Jets 30-10, and the Jets fall to 0-5. And yet Adam Gase still has a job, so we are officially still on Adam Gase watch to see when he will get fired, if ever. But Kyler Murray doing what he's kind of done, just been a consistent play each and every week for fantasy purposes. 27 of 37, 380 yards and a touchdown.
Career high.
1 interception.
Career high in passing yards.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Yeah, nine carries, 31 yards and a touchdown. So he continues to find the end zone when he's down there. You like the matchups that are coming up, Johnny. Dallas and Seattle, then a bye, and then Miami. Like the Cardinals are in a nice spot to really get the offense humming here. And when we look at that receiving core, there was actually some life here. I mean, obviously you're playing the Jets, Chelsea, but DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk getting involved in this game. You like to see that.
DeAndre Hopkins became the 4th youngest person in the NFL to reach 9,000 yards on the field.
Wow.
I thought it was really special that he did so alongside